Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Media Crash podcast. My name is Holden, or Time to Grind.
My name is Daniel, or not Daniel, as you can find me on the net.
My name is Matthew, or Satir, on the interweb.
On the interwebs. And so today we're going to be talking about the apocalypse genre as a whole. And on this show, every week we talk about a different theme or genre and just talk about our experiences in just movies and video games and pop culture in general. And so today, it's kind of fitting with all of the coronavirus stuff going on. In all seriousness, just wash your hands and be smart. No need to panic. I mean, it's kind of scary, but don't overly panic. But so we thought it would be fitting to talk about our experiences with the apocalypse genre in just pop culture.
Time to grind gaming. I find that the apocalypse genre was very, very overdone in our generation, or at least that we had a lot of content for it. I mean, think about just the number of post-apocalypse shows there are out there, barring the entire zombie genre.
Zombie
you can make that its own, its whole own topic.
Yeah.
Even barring that, there's a ton of post-apocalypse stories. You've got pandemic ones. You've got global collapse. You've got meteorites. You've got alien invasions. There's a lot of stuff.
Speaking of genres, I was doing some research earlier today, and what was the one I was talking to you on the way back here, Daniel? It was casual catastrophe.
No, it's cozy.
Cozy catastrophe.
Cozy catastrophe.
Which is a apocalypse movie or thing where it's more like they're endorsing the fact that it's an apocalypse, like the characters are actually having fun because there's no one around to fuck with them.
Oh.
I think Last Man on Earth or whatever, that one show where the guy was just fucking around until
he just has nothing else to he doesn't have to worry about work or anything like that.
And so I can think of a couple media that does that, but not much.
Yeah, I think overall, like you were saying, at least in our generation, the huge craze was just the zombie genre. I mean, there were a billion zombie games, there were a billion zombie movies and comic books, and just whatever you name, it was zombie stuff.
Yeah.
And so obviously that meant that there were a lot of terrible ones. There were a lot of really terrible, zombie movies and games and stuff, but there were also some really good ones. I know I never watched it, but
Daisy.
The Walking I know you're talking about Daisy last episode.
I freaking love that game, and I hate it with every fiber of my being. Oh, it's such a train wreck at times, and then other times it's so gripping. It does zombie survival, I think, the best of any game, because it's a completely social game. You're out there surviving with other people backstab you for a blood bag or something. But, it's also one of the most poorly designed games out there.
Have either of you, I only watched half of the first episode, so I can't really speak to it, but did either of you guys watch The Walking Dead?
I watched 3 or so seasons. I watched
the first and a half of the first 2 seasons. And I keep hearing the second one's boring, season's boring. I'm like, if it gets boring 2 seasons in, apparently the next seasons after that are actually pretty good. But it just keeps flip-flopping.
Did you know? I think they're still making episodes.
They're still making...
Yeah, no. It's still going.
This is just one of those shows that they don't want to stop it because they just want to keep making money.
They ran it into the ground, then they kept on running with it.
Oh my gosh.
We're on I think we've reached the mantle of the earth right now. That's how far into the ground it's been run.
So and from what you watched, because you watched the most, was it actually good? Was it a quality zombie?
It was okay. I was 15 when I watched it. I didn't really have taste.
The first season, this is why it's so popular, obviously, is surprisingly quality, just how it starts, which with the main character, they do away with him already going through the apocalypse, but him starting out in a coma, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And then, so he kind of goes into this, I guess 6 months into the apocalypse. I don't remember how long it was. And so shit's already happened, and he has no idea what's going on.
And so you're kind of having to figure out what's going on with him.
Yeah, and it's such a weird start.
Yeah.
It makes
I really like the opening.
But what part about zombies and specifically makes why it's the most popular apocalypse genre?
I mean, everyone would love a chance to just restart, I think. Well, that's why I think post-apocalypse genres are like popular, period. At least not the ones that are thoroughly miserable, like Mad Max, where no matter where you are in the social structure, you're gonna be pretty poor off. But you know, that's a pretty common dream for a lot of people. Just go out into a cabin in the woods, forget about society, and in this case, there'd be no need for you to go back because society doesn't really exist anymore.
Yeah, I don't know how much I would want to be in a zombie. Like
I would not want to be one, but I think I see where like kind of a wish fulfillment for, you know, wanting an escape from day-to-day life.
Yeah, like, you know, if
comes.
you're dealing with school and work and all that stuff, I could totally see it. I also think the zombie genre is really nice because there can be a lot of violence without it necessarily being bad, because nobody's going to get mad at, you know, a show portraying violence on like zombies. Like, so you can have people bashing zombies' heads in and, you know, shooting them in the head and stuff like that, and nobody's going to care. But if you're trying to make like a movie and those are real people, that's going to be like a whole thing. So
it takes the moral ambiguity out of killing someone for survival when you're just killing like mindless zombies.
yeah.
But there's like a lot of other topics apparently. There's have you guys ever watched or played a game where the apocalypse was like magic based somehow?
Magic based?
Like, because I saw that
Have
as a
you
genre.
seen Berserk?
No.
What's Berserk?
So Berserk is it's a manga and kind of an anime series. Like there was a few adaptations. There's one really good one and one more recent god awful one. But basically, like to give you kind of a brief synopsis, demons invade the planet like about a few acts into the story, or like a few arcs actually. So like these are some developed characters.
This is a fantasy world.
Yes,
Yeah.
fantasy world, you should specify. It's not quite post-apocalyptic, it's more like during the apocalypse.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, demons are invading, and there's still kind of a social order, but you can tell that stuff is really not doing too well.
And it's starting to fall apart.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dang. That just makes me think of obviously Doom, because like that's like, you know,
Yeah.
all the scientists, they bring in demons for whatever reason. I don't think I ever finished playing those games. but-
That's a good point.
You know, if
That-
your energy demands ever require that you, like, make a geothermal power plant in hell itself, I think you need to just reel back your power consumption a bit.
That's interesting. I always never thought of Doom as fantasy, even though technically it is doing with hell stuff. It's just Doom treats its like even its like hell and stuff as just like a weird version of like science.
Yeah.
That like it almost just makes it sci-fi.
Yeah, no, I guess that's fair. It's definitely, it might be tiptoeing more on like sci-fi apocalypse than like
It's definitely
fantasy.
both, because there's like lore and there's like magic swords and shit, especially in the newer one. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Man, that going back to the Walking Dead, did either of you guys play the Walking Dead like Telltale games?
I watched a bunch of Let's Players play it because I was poor.
I played, I think the first only the first 4 chapters, but I think that is the closest I ever got to getting into like the Walking Dead, you know, universe or whatever.
I finished it.
You finished the first. Did you ever play any of the ones after the first game?
No, I just finished the first, and it's genuinely like a good story.
That just makes me so sad for all the Telltale. I mean, like, I know technically Telltale's back, but like,
They are?
It's a resurrected
supposedly,
corpse.
yeah.
It's-
like, I think someone bought the company, and
Oh,
then
so they're like using the name?
they took out the insides and then crept into the just skin of the Telltale game. It's like none of the
Thank
original
you for
peop-
that visualization, Matthew.
It's none of the original people, I don't think.
Okay.
But so something I know that we all have seen is Mad Max, and I think that is probably one of my favorite like apocalypse movies.
Yeah.
Just in like, and by
Just
that I
for
mean
like entertainment, like it's also a really cool world. Just quality product from start to finish.
yeah, and I know there's multiple, but I think the one we all saw that we all really liked was the most recent one, the Mad Max Fury Road, because that like takes a super interesting spin on the apocalypse genre. Like it's like we're gonna do cars, like cars in, and so it's like super focused on like this desert world, and you know I think
It's
like
like
water
whole religions
scarce.
based around cars.
Yeah, and people like you know there's these cults for cars and stuff, and so the entire movie is pretty much like a car chase in the apocalypse, honestly. But it's pretty amazing.
It's probably one of the most efficient movies I've seen. Efficient as in like, in the most shortest amount of time, it's able to convey the most amount of themes and like plot points.
Yeah.
Without like turning into one of those like
Exposition dump ones.
Yeah, like it doesn't need a Star Wars crawl or anything. It just kind of does it.
Oh yeah, it just like the movie starts and it's just like, I mean, within like 2 minutes you're like, oh my gosh, I already got so much. Like it's a very fast paced movie. So I actually played the Mad Max Fury Road video game.
Oh, I did too.
For a couple hours.
I played the whole thing, like
really?
start to finish. Yeah.
It's pretty fun.
Yeah, seriously. I really like, they had like this grappling hook guy. You had a hunchback on the back of your car who shot grappling hooks at other cars. So the strategy was to just like speed past people, grapple the wheels off their cars, and then, you know, you can just fuck around with them because now they've just got a dead car in the middle of nowhere. It was a really fun game.
So one question I have is, where are they getting all of the fuel for those cars?
Gasoline Town or Gas Town, right?
Yeah.
They get gasoline from Gas Town.
So what, they just have a big oil rig there?
In the movie, the main villain was an alliance with two other towns. One of them was Bullet Town, and one was I think it was Bullet Farm and Gas Town. I think what it was.
And then he was the water guy.
Yeah,
the main villain.
and so they control those three main resources. Therefore, they were in charge, which makes actually a lot of sense. And so like I guess there's still like oil pumps out there.
Yeah.
And they just kind of pump it out.
So what happened to? I mean, I'm sure we would probably know this if we like watched the Mad Max movies, like all of them. But like, how did that apocalypse happen? Do they ever explain?
Was it a nuclear one, or was it just
No, I think in the original Mad Max it was kind of like a slow descent into chaos. Like Mad Max was supposed to be like a cop.
Yeah.
And you know, like the actual apocalypse kind of happens slowly. Like he goes to buy an ice cream for his kid or something. And then, like, the next day, I think they get murdered. Oh, yeah, spoilers, but the movie came out, like...
Yeah, 20-something years ago, probably.
Like, back in the black and white times when people rode dinosaurs to school, you know?
So wait, but like, how did they die, though? Like...
I think they got murdered by gang members.
Yeah.
So was there just, like, a limit of, like, resources? So people started fighting over the resources?
Yeah, it was basically just like a war, and I think, like, somehow the ocean dried up or something.
The ocean dried up.
Which is really bad.
Yeah.
That's... Like, I'm trying to think, what do you think is the most possible... Like, okay, well, I was gonna say, what do you think is the most possible apocalypse
barring
right now?
pandemic.
Yeah, the pandemic that is currently going on as of recording
Nuclear is always an option.
Yeah, that's true.
I'd say my default is probably just like a resource-based thing. So either like we just die because of lack of resources, or we just start fucking each other over because of lack of resources.
And that could be that could be where nuclear comes in.
I think that's where we're gonna, if any, where we'd go.
Yeah.
I don't think zombies are gonna come out. I don't think.
Oh, you sure? I'm sure if we work hard on genetically engineering a certain type of virus, you know, to make zombies, by the end of the decade, we can have a zombie outbreak. If we work together.
So, like, I'm trying to think, just obviously, because the coronavirus is on all our minds and pandemic, are there any, like, I mean, obviously you have, like, Pandemic the game, which I guess you could technically consider, like, an apocalypse game. Yes, or a Plague Geek, I think that's what I meant. Yeah, so, like, are there any, like, movies, like, about, or, like, I'm trying to think of, like, more in that type of genre where it's more a pandemic.
Have you seen or read The Stand?
I have not.
It's the Stephen King novel about a super virus. I think it's like the super flu. It escapes from a military base and it infects the entire world. The whole first part of the book is just about the start of that to like most of humanity dying. It's pretty depressing.
And then so what happens in the rest of the book?
The rest of the book is like plot, character stuff. We care about the apocalypse, right? People dying.
I remember, Matthew, you were telling me about, like, there were, like, 3 different, like, technically, like, phases or times of, like, apocalypse, like, things.
Oh, yeah. Like, the time it takes place is interesting. You can have a movie taking place during, like, the cause of the apocalypse, like, the chaos that is, like, what's going on. And,
so, like, the start of the Stephen King book, like you said.
Or, yeah, just everyone's like, okay, I guess we're going down this road. Might as well loot some shit along the way. That thing. Probably the most deadly, in a way. and then you have sort of the post of that where like a good chunk of the population's dead and everyone's just kind of like figuring out what they're going to do.
Surviving in the
Yeah, either surviving or rebuilding. And then there's post-apocalypse, which is apparently a different genre than apocalypse, which is when you do have established settlements and civilization kind of, and you start doing stuff on that, which is probably my favorite, because Fallout is basically a post-apocalypse. And now I find it way more interesting when they do things with, like, oh, now we're trying to rebuild, let's see what we could do with that. And so you have like whole civilizations like the NCR or Caesar's Legion which has like sizable amounts of territory, and they
What
have
about the most well thought out Fallout villains, the Institute, with their grand motivations of we felt like it.
well, yeah, wasn't there just,
Did they ever get a motivation?
I think it was just like science, but it was like, oh, it's morally ambiguous science, we got to do it for the sake of everyone or something like that.
So what were they doing?
The Institute was basically, it's in Fallout 4, the newest game, besides 76.
We don't talk about 76.
No one.
I think they were the MIT Institute and like the college in or the university in Boston, but they turned, since they were all like scientists, they built underground during the apocalypse somehow. I don't know if they had bunkers or anything, and they just like through their like super science were able to make like robots super intelligent. That's a whole plot line in the game, and like all this other stuff. I think they're starting genetically engineering gorillas, and basically what they started doing was they started making the robots look human and started like infiltrating other people's civilization, like other people's settlements.
For what? But they didn't really explain
do
why
not
they were
worry.
doing that?
No, when you ask at the deathbed of the guy who used to lead the Institute, he says, it's too complicated for you to
Oh my
understand.
gosh.
Ah.
Yeah, I gotta love when they're just like, yeah, no, it's too complicated to explain, so
your
we're
little
just not
monkey
going to
brain
even attempt to
couldn't
explain
even
it.
hope to understand.
Oh my
Okay.
New Vegas did it way better, where so you have Caesar's Legion, which are these guy. This guy read a book. The smart guy read a book on like the Roman Empire and was like, I'm going to do that again. It was like, oh, you just take tribes and you conquer other tribes. And another interesting about the Fallout games is tribes came back, right? Like there was the apocalypse, and then after that, all these people started coming out of the vaults and formed like tribes, basically out of the rubbish because they didn't know how to do anything else.
Was it pretty much? And then like I haven't played much Fallout, but for I know a little bit. But for those of you guys watching or listening that don't know, it's nuclear apocalypse, and then they just a bunch of people bunker down, and so there's like a ton of different bunkers, and a lot of them are super quirky. So are you saying that like each bunker like kind of came out, and then they were just like, well, I don't know where anyone else is, so we might as well just create a tribe with like
and then like
our
after
bunker?
it's like 200 years after the bombs dropped, so a lot of them kind of reverted back to like spears and stuff if they couldn't find any guns. And so this one guy just took control of a couple tribes and used those tribes to conquer more tribes. And so you have this sort of warrior-like society of people with, and they do have guns. They have a lot of guns, but they also like to use like ambush tactics and stuff. But that's besides the point. Most of the people, including most of the companions you get in that game, all be like, oh yeah, fuck the Caesar's Legion. They're slavers, they're sexist, they do all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then there's this one guy that's coming from Arizona, I think. He's like this Mexican guy. And you ask him about it, he's like, I don't think they're that bad. And you're like, what? Why? And it's like, man, have you seen Arizona? There's like no one controlling it. It's like a fucking shit show. And he's kind of pointing out that like, yeah, they're terrible people. Like they're not good people, but at least it's way better alternative than
just like not having any civility or anything
just,
like that.
All fitting for yourself and all that stuff. Like apparently it's also like illegal to run drugs within their little circle. And like they're still evil, like almost objectively, but like you can understand why people still support them
Because they bring a little order.
Yeah, I mean, part of what made New Vegas a really good game. You could argue for any faction. Well, you really have to stretch to argue Caesar's Legion. That's besides the point. I think that whole what happens when there's absolutely no order, that's kind of what makes post-apocalypse stuff really fun to investigate or to look into. You get to see like, how people act outside of like constructs or
out of like normal
civilization.
everyday life. I think that's one of my favorite things of just like I would do a little research of the Fallout games because like there's lore of like each of the bunkers, like there would be certain bunkers where like they just experimented for some reason. So like one bunker was like
Yeah, I
like
never
all
got that in the
males and then
games.
one female, and then there was a bunker where it was like all females and one male. And then like what are some of the other quirky like bunkers that were in?
There was one where I think literally all they did is they're like, all right, you're the blue section of the vault and you're the red section. And I don't know if they did anything with that. They made a blue overseer and a red one, and they fucking just eventually just did a civil war because
Because that's how it be. Like, oh yeah, no, go ahead.
Oh no, I was
Gonna say that like you were saying, that's just super interesting about the apocalypse genre because people can kind of take it as, you know, just stereotypical like zombie action. I'm gonna just kill zombies and that's gonna be the movie, you know, bashing zombie brains for 2 hours.
Some fun stuff there.
Yeah, or you can have it where they actually try to, you know, commentate on the you know, human nature of humans and like
Thank you for that.
I know that's a very
poignant
intelligent,
comment.
poetic comment, but like, you know, kind of like just saying how humans would react, how they think humans would react in situations like that. Because
Yeah.
we can all say like, oh yeah, if there was a zombie apocalypse,
You know,
I
I'd be
would.
breaking down doors and saving orphans.
Yeah, but then in reality,
But when you
I feel
look at
like,
the human natures of humans and their nature of humans, you know, it's a bit different.
most of us are gonna just be super selfish or little bitches, and I feel like there's not gonna be too many people that like stray outside of those two categories.
Are you kidding? I'm gonna, you know, when stuff goes down, I'm gonna break into the orphanage. I'm gonna grab fistfuls of orphans and take them away from the city, you know, all the flames and whatnot.
And then you find out you're actually just hallucinating. And there's no apocalypse. You just broke into an orphanage and
Okay.
kidnapped 6 orphans.
Listen, that's besides the point,
Okay.
okay? You gotta save orphans when given the opportunity to.
besides the kidnapping, that's actually like an interesting plot of an apocalypse movie of like a character like he's an adult and like most people he knows dies, but he somehow becomes like
A caretaker?
a caretaker of like a whole orphanage of children, and eventually like he ends up inadvertently starting his own like clan of people because like
That sounds
he has no
so
choice
cool.
but to like
And they
raise
start
them.
like, yeah, because they start like growing up, because, you know,
Yeah.
apocalypse, you know, maybe he does it and then like 2-3 years later, or, you know, or it could just be something like someone's that, okay, so we need to be movie directors and writers, because
Alright,
what
yeah.
if there was a movie apocalypse, you know, and there's just this selfish guy that's just trying to escape, you know, maybe his family died, I don't know, I don't care.
Yeah.
Maybe the view doesn't know. And then, you know, he stumbles across just like 6 orphans on the road. And like, you know, he makes a decision to like
eats them.
He eats them, yes. And then we reboot the franchise where instead of eating them, he's like, well crap, I can't just leave these 6 orphans. And so he hates them, and then, you know, they grow on him, and then they create a cult, and then they kill a bunch of
I was thinking like honestly
Okay,
like
alright, how about we don't do that? I just advocated for eating kids, so I can't say much, but maybe making a murder cult wouldn't be the best for that kind of uplifting movie.
it'd be more fun if it was like a whole like class like a whole group like 24 kids, and this guy's like and then like they
Can you
range in
imagine
ages.
taking care of that many kids?
And like some of them are older, and so they're able to take. And he just like does not know what to do, but he's the oldest there.
So maybe he when escaping from, like, say we're doing zombies, maybe he like escapes from a zombie into his school, and he just goes into a classroom, and there's just a bunch of kids there that have no clue what to do. They were told to like, you know, stay there, and like their teacher's not there, and they're all just like, oh, are you here to save us? And he's like, no, that's not what I, but like, they're all like, oh yeah, you're gonna save us, like shit. Man,
That's great, actually. And then like there's the whole like, oh, you lied to us, and they all run away, and he has to go find
Oh,
them.
of course. That needs to happen in the third act of every movie.
And how he
It's
gets
the
them all
law.
back is like throughout the whole plot of the movie, he discovers little quirks about them all, and he uses that to get the main ones back.
Oh, like what? One of them's like it's like super smart, or like, or if we're going to fantasy, maybe just somehow they actually have like superpowers.
Or uses a gun.
Oh,
Has there been a zombie movie with humans that have superpowers? 'Cause I just thought about that. That could be really cool.
I guarantee you there has. I cannot think of one.
Have you ever played a game called Cataclysm Dark Days Ahead?
I've heard of it. I haven't played it.
It's really good, and it's like a whole mash of a bunch of different like types of apocalypse, but basically like 3 different kinds of apocalypse hit. The world's being invaded by extra-dimensional creatures, zombies, some weird like ghost shit, some Cthulhu shit, you got everything in there.
my gosh.
And that's the closest I've ever seen to like superpowers in a zombie setting, because you've got like cybernetics and mutations that can make humans really, really strong.
Yeah, because to be fair, I don't think if you were just a normal everyday human, you could survive a zombie apocalypse, aliens coming, ghosts, all that stuff. You gotta, because I'm just thinking, imagine like, something like that like would be so cool if like one person just had like Superman eyes and he could just like clear out like just a whole like horde of zombies at once.
Walking around boys style. What's his name?
Homelander. Oh my gosh, the boys is, see, because then you could do a spin on it, or where there's these superheroes in zombie. That would be amazing.
Oh, like superheroes in a zombie setting, and they're just like, well,
why would we save you?
We can't. Well, no. What if it was like, okay, well, we can't be killed because we're badasses, obviously. But the scale of this problem is just so big that there's absolutely no chance that they could ever like save everyone. So most of the world's just
still dying while they're trying.
It's like a plot of like a shonen anime. But like, what if like the same virus that turns most people into zombies, if you're immune to it, you still get a power, but the zombies,
I'm pretty sure that's there's some anime where it's like it's set on a train. Got compared to Attack on Titan a lot. I don't know the name. It's like something of the Iron Fortress. There's this zombie virus thing. I think like rage zombies, but the rage zombies have superpowers. And if you only get partially infected, then you get the superpowers without the whole rage virus thing. I haven't actually seen it.
Is that the plot of Tokyo Ghoul? I have not seen Tokyo Ghoul. That might be.
Huh.
I know nothing about Tokyo Ghoul, except
I know it's really edgy.
Yeah, except one of their intros is pretty fire, but people shit on me for liking it.
I mean, I think that's just because people want to shit on you. But not in... So,
it's okay,
moving on, Holden.
So, I think we are running a little bit low on time, but is there anything else you guys want to say about the zombie apocalypse movie? Or not zombie, just apocalypse movies in general?
Yeah, we were talking about apocalypses, so just goes to zombie apocalypses.
Just because the generation, we were in.
Yeah.
Just everything. We want more non-zombie movies, even though our dream apocalypse movie we were just talking about has zombies.
Okay, it doesn't have to have zombies.
Maybe they're demons. They come from hell.
I have something. This is a very niche topic, but in this game called Crusader Kings 2, there's an overhaul mod called After the Fall, and it takes place in America after an apocalyptic event, and all the technology reverted back to medieval era tech, and so you have all these like clans that like have different cultures and religions, and like the Florida area has like the religion of the mouse.
Oh my
and like
gosh.
there's like Norse resurgence around the Rust Belt. There's like people that worship like the industry, like factories and shit, and it's so well developed, and like it spans almost all of North America and in like the top half of like South America, and they have a bunch of different like civilizations. Cool.
Oh my gosh, because I haven't even like played a that's not a city building game, but just strategy game of like an apocalypse. That sounds very interesting. I'm sure there's a lot of mods probably, but like I can't think of any like super huge AAA title, games. But
Battle Royale for Civ.
Oh my gosh.
It's a battle royale mode for Civ,
and it's set in the which is dumb because I've always wanted a post-apocalyptic like overhaul for Civ, like where instead of establishing an empire, you're like rebuilding a civ from like a bunker, and like rather than establishing cities, you're rebuilding them, like finding them. And,
that would be cool.
All right, if anyone uses any idea we've put out here, we are the only people to think of these. You owe us $1 billion.
I want a check in the mail for billions.
Make
of dollars.
it out to Time to Grind Gaming YouTube. All right, at Time to Grind. Or is that
I think it's just time to. Well, I think my URL technically is time to grind.
TimetoGrind.bank.
Yes, that is a URL that exists 100%. But either way, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Media Crash podcast. Stay tuned for next Friday because we'll be talking about another quirky topic. And if you guys have any experiences with the apocalypse genre, let us know, because obviously we're only 3 people. We can't watch all the movies. We can't play all the games.
Speak for yourself,
So
Holden.
you can play all the movies and all the games.
I already have. I've
That's-
been holding out on you.
That's pretty impressive. But so let us know what your favorite apocalypse movies and games and books and all of that stuff is, and we will see you guys next time.
Goodbye.